Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. And I know it's with short notice, but it's important that we gather to talk about the real priorities and the real challenges facing our city. I'm Mayor Rich Thomas, privileged to be mayor of the great city of Mount Vernon. And I thank you all not only for coming, I thank the commissioners. I'm just going to ask at this time that all the commissioners and that work for the city of Mount Vernon, please just rise so you can be seen. And everyone can know that there are people among you that help lead this great city. You have our water commissioner right here to my left, your right. You have our planning commissioner, Chantel O'Carter, our human resource commissioner, Melissa Ralph, our acting police commissioner just walked up front. In the back, we have a buildings commissioner with the bow tie, that's Curtis Woods. Our veterans commissioner, Kristen Reed. Our public works commissioner, Joe Nigro, is in the back. And our fire commissioner, who you'll see on video shortly, is also in the back of the room. And there'll be more people coming in and out throughout this event. And there are also other staff members here that will make themselves available to talk with you. But tonight you're here to talk about taxes. You're here to learn about what we see as the impact on the Trump tax plan that's going to have on middle-class homeowners here in the city of Mount Vernon. But we're also going to talk about the budget that the city council and the comptroller has basically handed over to you. And there's a real challenge here because it's going to have some drastic consequences. So I'm going to ask that we just start with talking about where we are, where we're going, and how we intend to get there. Many people lost trust in government. We understand that. And the only way to bring trust back is to have policy stability. We worked pretty hard to make sure that the policies that we recommended were best practices, borrowed from very successful cities, from Oklahoma City to Melbourne to Monterrey, Mexico, making sure that we travel the world to bring about the best ideas to make sure that we best utilize your tax dollars. Go back. One of the key things that we're really focusing on and where we're pivoting to, as you'll see in the next 2 years, is really on the economy. What can we do to get those closed storefronts on Gramerton and 4th Avenue open? That's the key objective. How do we bring jobs back? How do we bring vitality back to the city of Mount Vernon? And that is one of the key things that's going to impact unemployment. We know that elections bring all sorts of surprises, but that's over with. And these are our key focus areas right here, getting the economy going, because that's the place that has flatlined over the years, causing Mount Vernon to dip deeper and deeper into your pocket to pay for government services or lack thereof. So we understand that Mount Vernon had a lot in the past, and that doesn't mean that it should stay there. We need to have a lot more in the future. So as we moved on, just go next slide. This kind of summarizes what we've done over the past 24 months. This slide deck will be available. It will be online for you to take a closer look. But I just want to point out that we have implemented efforts to start the comprehensive plan. We found funding for that through the Urban Renewal Agency. We've worked with the World Economic Forum. We have studies from Mercy College, and NYU is doing 4 studies right now, including rebranding Mount Vernon, including focusing on craft foods and beer halls throughout the city and also a tourist plan and a sports activation plan, including Memorial Field. You should know some of the best and brightest minds, one being the name of Sam Shandon, who is the executive director of the Shack Institute for Real Estate at NYU, which is chaired by Scott Reckler from RXR, which is a phenomenal institution, one of the top-ranked real estate schools in the country, is stepping up to help us implement new plans with concrete actions. But before I say anything else, I just want to stop for a moment and thank the school district for opening up this facility for us to have this discussion. And I know that Principal Gonzalez is probably at the basketball game with the superintendent, but definitely got to thank them for making this space available. But this is what we've done over basically 24 months. We set a new agenda. We found many problems that we tried to pair an innovation with. We try to restructure government as much as we could, even though we've been unfunded by large part. And we're right now at this stage 4 in month 24, just trying to routinize our activities. Next slide. So who remembers Mount Vernon? Mount Vernon had 6 movie theaters, bowling alleys. It had shops. There was a Sears and Roebuck on Gramerton Avenue. There are so many things. This building is a historic building, and it's largely the same. Thank goodness that character has stayed with us. But its contents is really gone. That building is largely empty. Over 25,000 square feet per floor, just empty. So if we are to do something, we have to bring life back to this area of town. Next slide. So the plan that we just released, or will be releasing on South 4th Avenue, talks about transforming 4th Avenue into a pedestrian mall with shops, restaurants, places that you want to be, something that is attractive. It provides space for a combination of activities, also live, work, play. Right now, to your far left, you can see the image of what 4th Avenue looks like. That's unsustainable. That doesn't generate revenue. That doesn't pay for the school district, which will face a form of cuts under this tax plan if it is adopted, depending upon 2018 or 2019, depending upon when it is adopted. And to be clear, the school district received about $70 million in state and federal aid, and any loss in that number will create a significant impact on property taxes, period, unless they go further on your cell phone bill or your TV bill or your electric bill, which they do collect money from, and the city does not. Next slide. This right here is the railroad tracks that divide the city. And the next slide shows the vision of how we can cover the tracks. You need to know that this is nothing new. Mount Vernon has aspired to cover the railroad tracks since 1901. This is nothing new. And when you look around and you think of what happened in San Antonio with their walkway along the river, when you think about what happened with the Beltway, when you think about what Atlanta did, when you think of, hold on, just hold it right there. When you think of what even Yonkers did with the daylighting of the Sawmill River, that was a $26 million project at a minimum to daylight the Sawmill River in Yonkers, downtown Yonkers. And look at what it did in terms of bringing a whole new element of restaurants, shops, a destination. When you go away, you go to enjoy parks. You go to enjoy people's, communities and their quality of life. You go to Jamaica, you go to the beach. You go to Disney World, you're going to basically the equivalent of a larger playland. No offense to Disney World, love Disney World. But you're going to enjoy a park. You're staying in a restaurant, in a hotel, and you're enjoying restaurants. There's no reason why people will not come to visit Mount Vernon, especially when we already have 10 million cars pass through 6 locations annually. Keyword, 6 locations, 10 million cars. We haven't begun to track all the volume of vehicles passing through our city yet. And that's part of our initiative. But this is from August Petrillo. 1975. These are basically designs that were presented back then that we just colored in and said, you know what, this can work for Mount Vernon because we want to see something that is going to bring people out and reconnect the city. Next slide. Now, this is one of the key areas that is undergoing a study. We earned a $400,000 grant from the state of New York to do a rezoning of this area, which is the Mount Vernon East train station, and we did pitch this to Amazon. Next slide. Basically connecting that park concept going from First Avenue Bridge all the way up to the Bronx line, as you saw with the previous slide covering that cut. Again, will Amazon pick Mount Vernon? Fingers crossed they do, and legs crossed and toes. But you never know. I want to tell you briefly that Oklahoma City went after Federal Express, and Federal Express ultimately picked Memphis, Tennessee instead. They brought 34,000 jobs to Memphis, and Oklahoma City wound up becoming the capital of oil and gas of the South, outside of Texas, of course. And they rose. They attracted the Oklahoma City Thunder. Their quality of life skyrocketed, and they did very much some of the things that I'm recommending in the current budget that we presented. What Oklahoma City did was they put a 1% surcharge on sales tax. I'm recommending similar styles or similar approaches, which we can get into later on, but those recommendations that led to the revitalization of Oklahoma City are not reflected in the budget that was presented by the council or the comptroller. And this is an issue because it leaves us all with huge expenses that are really going to take us backward. Now, you're wondering, how are we going to do this? There's no way Mount Vernon can do this. Well, there's a letter that should be circulating the room that I wrote on July 3rd. And that letter details how there are millions of state and federal grant dollars that are available to us through the New York Metropolitan Transit Council. And they awarded an area near the Bronx $64 million just to do bike lanes and pedestrian safety for free. Why can't Mount Vernon get $120 million to do our sewers? Why can't we get $100 million or more to not just cover these railroad tracks, next slide, and unleash $396 million in new economic activity that could be invested in Mount Vernon? By the way, that number is what you all spend outside of the city. If we fill those storefronts, just 30%, we can bring in an additional $200 million at a minimum of activity. That's $12 million in sales taxes. We get $17 million in sales taxes a year. That's what we get. That's what the flat line is. Year after year, $17 million, the same number. That means the economy is not growing. So if we focus on bringing in the money that we already spend back to Gramerton, back to 4th Avenue. I mean, who wants to go grab a burger on 4th Avenue right now? You can't, because burgers are not sold on 4th Avenue. And that's part of the problem. You can't even buy a cup of coffee, and I'm not proud of that. But you can find drugs and you can find trouble. And those are things that the police department's working hard to reverse. But we can't do it without having plans that we implement. Now, we did one plan for 4th Avenue. We got it through a grant. But our budget calls for a real investment in the planning department. And you can't turn on the economy if you don't have the right plans. No plans, no action. No action, nothing moves forward. You stand still. Time moves forward, we're really going backwards. And that's the problem. We cannot allow ourselves to continue to remain frozen in time, hoping that Proctor's will come back, hoping that Sears and Roebuck will automatically be successful again. They're facing bankruptcy. That's because they haven't changed with the times. That's just the business model. We believe that we have a lot to offer. Next slide. And in working with the Regional Plan Association, which recently announced, you may have heard this announcement, that there was a group that recommended the subway system not operate 24 hours a day so they can make repairs at night. The same group that made that recommendation recommended Mount Vernon cover the cross county and create a new park to create more green space, to rise to the challenge of climate change. And it can be done with federal dollars as well as state dollars without having to consult or use property taxes. These are all great things, but you can't go after this and create this transformation which will spur, next slide, which will spur a transformation of our city, bringing hundreds of thousands of tourists here to buy coffee, to enjoy our restaurants like Tino's or Maggie Spillane's. These are all things that can happen. It's possible, but we have to basically put in the work to determine whether or not it is feasible. I have a tentative commitment from the MTA to issue a request for information to cover the railroad tracks. We presented to them that 1976 plan and proved that it's roughly $56 million for them to cover it. It's a rounding error on their balance sheet. So it's possible. Hudson Yards, over billions of dollars of investment. Why not in a place where there will not be congestion pricing? One, the traffic doesn't exist. The air quality is a little bit better than New York City, depending upon where you are. If you're in an industrial area, we have to do some work. But the reality is we have cheaper rents, and we can get into and out of Manhattan quicker than you can get from 42nd Street to the Barclays Center. That's a fact. So Mount Vernon, our transit system's unparalleled. And knowing that we are already moving forward on reclaiming the Hutchinson River. How many of you, by a show of hands, have seen the trees cleared along the Hutch, passing Target? We said that this is something that we were going to do. We're doing it in partnership with the governor's office, and the governor's been a huge help to Mount Vernon. And Ms. McNeil is here today. She spoke at our last town hall. Ms. McNeil, if you don't mind just standing up real quick so everybody can see you. Or you just read. Ms. McNeil, thank you for coming out tonight, Ms. McNeil. Ms. McNeil has been displaced from her home because of the raw sewage that Mount Vernon has neglected right before Thanksgiving. And we've been asking, if not begging, our colleagues to just work with us on addressing the real challenges that are jeopardizing the life, health, and safety of our neighbors. Property values do not go up when you have raw sewage in your basement. Property values do not go up when you have situations of this magnitude. But what we're presenting and what we're pitching is a turnaround, an economic transformation of the city that is possible by having the right team pursue grants. Now, if we don't get the grants, guess what? We don't do it. We put it on the shelf and we wait. But at least we can do the math, do the numbers, and see what happens. And Steve Lawrence, he's our sole grant writer in a city of 80,000. The only person. Just raise your hand, Steve. The one person. I'm trying to get 2 or 3 more Steve Lawrences because Steve, in the past year and a half, got $18.6 million in grants versus $2 million the year before. So by just changing our focus and working together, we can get so much more. So with more Steves, I'm telling you, we can really make a big difference. And it doesn't cost that much to put effort into supporting Steve. Next slide. So this is what's going to bring thousands of jobs to our city. We've been focused on business, and I don't know too many other mayors in this region that have a seat on the World Economic Forum. I'm proud to have been invited. I sit on their transportation committee, their mobility committee, and their 4th Industrial Revolution committee. And again, it has really helped Mount Vernon gain a lot of different benefits from receiving grants, studies. For example, the forum did a study on our planning department. They recommended changes we can make from a design thinking standpoint that would make it more efficient. This was put in the budget last year. We put it again in the budget this year. And again, the best minds from Switzerland, the best minds from India, the best minds from Ireland, the UK, and Africa. These places were basically ignored. They spent 8 weeks in Mount Vernon, prepared a phenomenal study. And this is what we're bringing to the table. And the letter from July 3rd should confirm to you that we constantly try to convene people of all different beliefs, different standpoints, so we can, debate, have a dialogue. We understand that 2 monologues do not make a dialogue. And when you have the World Economic Forum rejected by the council and the comptroller, no response to a letter where it's clear that $64 million was given to one project in the Bronx for free. When you don't have participation, you wind up with this stagnation. And there's no reason why our property values should be stagnating. We need it to rise. So my hope is that when you look closely and carefully at the budget we presented, yes, there's a cost this year because there are, quote unquote, penalties that we're going to pay, and we're going to talk about those penalties in a moment. But there are a lot of challenges that we have to deal with because these plans have been rejected, no matter our best effort to bring people together. But we're not going to stop inviting people, inviting you to get the information. We're not going to stop challenging each other to aspire for better and aim higher. We're not going to do that. We're not going to stop because we know that if we do, we're going to allow Mount Vernon to fail, and that means no future for us or our kids, which basically means why are we even here in the first place? So we're going to keep trying to bring solutions, but we need people to be a part of that discussion. Next slide. So I reject digging the financial ditch deeper because it only makes the problem worse. We can make the problem into a solution. Next slide. So we know that we have to go forward and not reverse the clock. Next slide. And we need to go forward with it. And what you're going to see now is a quick video from our consultant. His name is Dolph Rotfeld. Dolph is very well respected in the field of engineering. I had the privilege and pleasure of working with Dolph when I worked for Governor Patterson. He helped Port Chester. If many of you have been following Port Chester recently invested $15 million into their sewers. They started that project in 2008, and they completed it recently. They financed it on their sewer bill. They basically created a sewer commission, which added about 25 cents to 75 cents to your sewer fee, which basically financed the cost of sewer repairs in Port Chester over the next 100 years. That is affordable. But having that dialogue with my colleagues is impossible. And you're going to hear it directly from Dolph.
Good afternoon. Basically, I just want to talk about the seriousness of getting the sanitary sewer situation resolved in the city of Mount Vernon, which, as you all know, has been hanging around for a couple of years now. Just before the summer, we proposed a schedule at the time to the Justice Department of the track down. As you also may know, I was instrumental in getting the city of Mount Vernon a grant of $1.6 million from the New York State DEC on a anticipated project cost of about $1.9 million. Nothing, as far as I know, has been done by the city of Mount Vernon to implement this, even though we have prepared the proposed contracts for getting this work done. Additionally, the Justice Department, I'm pretty sure, is meaningful of the schedule that we proposed back in June of 2017 to televise and track down pollution into the storm drains from the sanitary sewer system and other illegal connections. And so far there's been some work done by the city of Mount Vernon, but we have a very short time to televise and detect the violations of stormwater regulations, to televise close to 600,000 feet of pipeline, and experienced crews in this type of work, according to our experience, under the best of conditions, can do about 2,000 feet a day. And if you do the math, 600,000 divided by 2,000 is something like 300 working days. So that's way past and beyond for what one crew can do. So the contracts that we prepared for doing this work requires experienced contractors to spend somewhere with 4 crews the time allotted. The little work that has been done by by the city of Mount Vernon is commendable, but they're not going to get this done in a timely manner, and this has to be started almost immediately. One of the other things that I have a complaint about is that we're owed probably somewhere close to $17,000, some of which going back to the month of May of this year, even though we have an agreement that our invoices are to be paid within 30 days. So far, 4 invoices are way beyond 30 days. I stand ready, willing, and able to do everything that my company can do to get Mount Vernon started in this, and to save it from what could be potential problems from EPA and Justice Department.
So I wanted you to hear directly from Dolph because, again, Dolph has over 60 years of work here in the region. And we specifically recruited him to help us with this project because the EPA and the Justice Department respects him and his work. And we have attempted numerous times to sit down with the council and comptroller, and you see one of the letters from July, inviting them to look at how we can pay for this without going to you, without asking you for any dollars. And when Dolph followed up and we tried to meet with them in mid-July, they didn't want to hear from Dolph. Dolph warned them that, look, we haven't done enough. The sewer equipment that we got, it was nice, but having only one crew that does not have experience in mapping sewers, start mapping sewers, is not enough to meet that deadline. Go to the next slide. So here is a page from the consent order, and it makes it very clear that in March of 2018, we were supposed to have mapped 600,000 linear feet of pipe. We've only completed just under 3,000 since September. That's because the sewers are so bad that every time you go to look, they're either collapsed or they're just not there. They're made of clay pipes over 100 years ago, and Ms. McNeil is suffering the situation right now in her backyard and in her home. So I'm not here to say that I told you so, but it's in black and white. And when we sat down with the Department of Justice in April, they made it very clear that they will not tolerate politics in prohibiting progress. And I've done my best to convene everybody. I've done my best to present solutions. I've done my best to make it as easy to work with us as possible. But for some reason, in the budget that was recommended by the council and the comptroller, they didn't find it wise to comply with this consent order. And the numbers are staggering. They only identified 6 locations that they want us to start televising before they add more. And when you add the fines, it's $37,000 a day per violation. You do that times 6, you get $225,000 a day, which can equate to $1.7 million a week easily. And that is just the beginning. The situation is of a Flint scale because Ms. McNeil can tell you the story. And she's not the only one. She's the only one that's here tonight and brave enough to kind of share her story with us as publicly. But there are many families in Mount Vernon that deal with sewers that are failing. And knowing that sewers are failing, it is a real serious situation for the health and welfare of our community. And the sewers have spelled the rise for communities in Oklahoma City. They have spelled the rise for Philadelphia. They spelled the rise for Atlanta, which is why, again, I take the opportunity very seriously to sit at the table with the World Economic Forum leaders around the world talking about how we can put Mount Vernon back on the jobs map, how we can expand our industrial zone to grow our commercial base, how we can bring businesses that are priced out of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens to locate right on the border so we can bring good paying jobs that are threatened by robots. And it is a real concern that we discuss at the Fourth Industrial Revolution because there may be some jobs that could be stolen by robots. Our recommendation is the senior university, where seniors can go back to school and get a free college education. We partner with the Wartburg and Concordia College. And this is something that seniors of any background, any age, any level of education can get a free college education and re-enter the workforce and open new doors. It's important because there's a lot of wisdom that we see in that job pool, and we want to make sure that that workforce gets stronger and also connects with the schools so we can have more people educated to tutor and mentor our toddlers, teenagers, and young adults. But in the meantime, part of the plan that you see here, or that we showed you, that transformation, is baked into this settlement. Part of the offset of the penalty we will pay to the Justice Department, as per this consent order, is building new parks. It's cleaning up the waterways, which is why you see the work being done along the Hutch. Many of you may have forgotten that we had a trailway along the Hutch. You used to ride horses down there, ride your bikes, push strollers. Now we're talking about putting the shipping containers that you see in Times Square with beer, coffee, and other amenities so that you can have that same quality of life that you see bubbling up at the Gowanus Canal at Sponge Park. It's possible. We can do this without having to consult property taxes, but it's not possible when you have a budget that is designed to dismantle services. So I want to tell you what we're going to do if the budget that has been presented by the council comptroller passes. At this point, I don't see it passing due to a variety of technical challenges, but here's what's going to happen, and I need you to share this with your neighbors, I need you to share this with your friends, and I need you to challenge our government to do better. So, number one, garbage collection will go to once a week. Recycling will go to twice a month, because we have to dedicate every single resource to mapping and fixing the sewers. And that's just the beginning. We're going to look at having to shut down the buildings department for at least 2 days a week because the staff is just not there to process the plans. Now, I can show you that we have done our best to support the city through the IDA by offering a variety of services. However, we can't do this forever. The building department can pay for itself. And one of the key things that you need to know is our fire department can also generate revenue. And there will be a video that we'll talk about later, but next slide. Next slide. Next one. Keep going. Okay. Oh, that's it. So, Comptroller DiNapoli issued an audit of the buildings department. And he found that the buildings department loses, on average, $83,000 a year by not processing permits properly. Think about that. You have a department losing money. And when we took a closer look, we said, man, the comptroller found that there were close to 5,000 violations languishing since 2004, found over $400,000 in fines due to the city that they just did not collect. That is from the state of New York. Here's the link on the bottom. You can find it online, and it's a shame. Next slide. Well, hold on. I'm going to just, before you hit play. So, the fire department has one inspector, and that one inspector is the fire commissioner. One inspector for a city of 80,000, and that is the fire commissioner. It's absurd. Here you're going to watch a video of the fire commissioner doing his job of inspections at nighttime away from his family because that's the only time he can do it.
I got a report this afternoon around 3:30 that there was an illegal social club underneath 253 West 1st Street under the laundromat. Bartenders, waitresses, one way of egress in and out. It's an illegal club. They're not licensed. So the police department behind me, we're going to go in. We're going to go to the premise, clear the premise. We have our rescue company coming in, and we're going to see if it's true or not. And if it is true, we're going to shut down the premise for illegal social club.
That's 57. Is that where you said we're going? Hi, how are you, everyone? Who's in charge?
That's 17.
So that means the person behind the bar is in charge. Can I see your liquor license? Just come right out with the honesty. Let's go. It ain't a big deal.
I don't have any.
No liquor license?
So we investigated the complaint, and it was a positive complaint for an illegal social club in the basement. There was about 12 gentlemen playing dominoes, very orderly gentlemen, very nice gentlemen. But at the bar, we had a barmaid serving liquor, taking money. The two sergeants, Mount Vernon police sergeants on the scene, asked her for a liquor license. She couldn't produce one, and they found some evidence. So at this point, they're confiscating the liquor. They asked the gentlemen to leave that were playing dominoes game, and we're going through the rest of the premise. And as you see over my shoulder, we have an electrical rat's nest of stuff. It looked like some of the work was started, but it was never completed. And the building department's en route. to issue violations and to shut the place down until the proper repairs could be made and the owner notified. Behind you, there's a pile of combustibles that, God forbid, someone threw a match in or a spark that would set this storefront on fire and extend to the apartments upstairs. Okay, just look above in the stairwell. We have exposed insulation, no sheetrock on top of it. A spark or a flame can set that on fire and again extend into the stores and, God forbid, extend to the residents upstairs. The door, the window, it's got a gate over it. I have no idea why. It's an illegal gate. Even if you had a fire and you try to exit that window, you can't because of the gate. And the whole stairwell is being held together by a piece of 2x4. Shake it. No emergency lights, no CO detectors, no smoke detectors, no fire extinguishers, no illuminated exit signs. This place is a danger. And we're very happy that we were able to shut it down tonight and in an orderly manner and make it safe for the residents to live in the rest of this building.
On one level, you have to empathize with the person that was running that club. You know, work is probably hard to come by. But where we come from a place of safety. If something happens, our crews have to go in and rescue them. And not knowing that they're downstairs, can you imagine if they had a packed night, you couldn't get out? And then you're going to have a larger safety issue on hands. And then the question is going to come, how come the city didn't inspect? Well, we only have one inspector. And that's where we are struggling to convince our colleagues to take safety more seriously because we need a team of inspectors in fire and we need a team of inspectors in buildings. Now, go to the next slide. Our building department can pay for itself. This year alone, $28 million in construction value was processed, yielding approximately $2.8 million in fees. That should pay for the buildings department just by processing permits in a timely fashion. That's what we've been able to do by working with our IDA and working with the buildings department because we understand that we have to be more efficient. However, the building department is down to one inspector. And I can tell you unequivocally, if you've read the stories about Ramapo and how their inspectors were not doing the right thing, some of them were charged with corruption, we've seen very similar situations in Mount Vernon. We've even presented the Journal News with facts showing that there are real issues, particularly with plumbing inspections, where things have been understated and costs and fees have been misstated. And we were told that no one's convinced or concerned about those facts. They want to look at drama and personality. All I can tell you is I'm going to focus on doing the work of the people. And these dollars are real dollars. All it takes is a little bit of investment in the operations. And this is just processing permits, clearing a backlog. But for some reason, we can't get the support that we need. Now, I have to pause for one moment. My wife and son just walked in, and today is his actual birthday. So happy birthday, Harrison. And he just came from swimming. He just came from swimming in White Plains. And again, it's a bit, I'm chuckling because it's ridiculous that we're a city of 80,000, 4 square miles. We don't have a pool. And I have to send my kid to White Plains to swim. And I know we have the capacity to invest in the infrastructure for youth sports, to bring back Memorial Field, but for some reason we're dealing with a group of people that want to see us all fail. So I can only, again, emphasize that we're doing the work as best as we can, but if this budget passes, God forbid, the building department will essentially go into a furlough period, a furlough status, as well as DPW. We'll be focusing on the sewers almost exclusively, and your garbage is going to pile up. And we're going to do our best to give you measures to deal with that, but it's really going to be difficult on the south side of Mount Vernon where density is a very real challenge. It's not something that we want to do, it's something we're going to have to do. And when you look clearly at our budget and you look at the budget that was presented by the council and the comptroller, you see nothing in there for public works, nothing in for planning, those plans we told you about that can bring about these parks, those parks that are designed to offset the cost of the financial penalty by the Department of Justice for failing to fix our sewers. How about that? Think about that benefit. Building new parks, revitalizing our community, bringing businesses and jobs to the city in exchange for just doing our job, fixing the sewers. In the meantime, these are the threats that we face. Next slide. We know that we've reduced the amount of time of the backlog. That 4,000 backlog has been virtually eliminated. Go down, next slide. And crime has decreased despite the Department of Public Safety being unfunded. How do we do it? We focused on management. We focused on middle management. We focused on supervisory leadership. We focused on applying best practices from Brazil to New York City to make sure that we focus on the data. And if you haven't seen the weekly crime statistics, they are available online. You can see on a week-to-week basis and a year-to-year basis and a 5-year basis. We publish all the data so you can see not just a week-to-week, but also 28 days and annually how things change. And this information is real. And we make our decisions as quickly as we can, sometimes on a daily basis, to try and strengthen our targeting of trying to crack down on certain types of crime that spikes. So I just want to give a big congrats to the Acting Police Commissioner Harris and Chief Zadie, who's also with us. So thank you guys for what you're doing. But again, the police commissioner position was unfunded, and that's not funny, but it happened. And we had to work under these conditions. And you know what? I'm proud to show that we rose above the challenge and delivered for you. That doesn't mean we should stay in this situation. We can make Mount Vernon safer, but I just want to emphasize your property values will go up when people start realizing that crime is going down, and it's going to go down further when we have a properly funded department. And it's going to go, and your property value is going to go up when Memorial Field comes back, as well as the sewers get fixed. Next slide. So this is the fundamental question. Which way should Mount Vernon go? Up or down? And the next question is, which way should property values go? Up or down? And the last question is, which way should quality of life go? Up or down? Up. And this is where we believe we have nowhere else to go. We have to go up. And frankly, I'm getting tired of having to take my son to other communities when we have control of our own community right here. And we should be investing in our facilities and taking that $400 million that we spend outside of the city and spend it right here. We can do it. We have the ability to do it. We have the plan on the table. All we need is some partnership. With that, I'll stop and take some questions.
To Mount Vernon. My husband and I moved here about 4 years ago. I'm from Virginia, and I remember when you ran, your premise was to lower taxes for homeowners. Since then, they've gone up every year that we've been here, and your latest budget has a projected 5% increase in tax. My question is more specifically, lately, you've been doing a lot of traveling. I believe you're on the ADA. I'm not quite sure what your position is.
World Economic Forum.
I'm sorry?
World Economic Forum.
So do you, the IDA is here in Mount Vernon. Do you vote on your trips? Because
Yes.
I know that you went to Dubai and you brought your wife. That's about $13,000. You brought one of the...
1,300.
How would you only spend $1,300 on a plane ticket and a one-night stay in Dubai, which is one of the most expensive areas in the world? Anyways, you went to Jamaica twice. You went to LA. You went to Texas.
Jamaica once.
Anyway, so my husband and
I went to
I,
Jamaica
in our
once.
community in Fleetwood, we're just
And I
wondering.
didn't go to Louisville.
what exactly what can you say for all this travel coming to Mount Vernon? You know, because it seems like to us that you're just kind of spending a lot of money, and I appreciate the intention, but at the end of the day, the schools have gone from a 5 to a 3. Our taxes continue to rise. I've seen you in the Bronxville parks with your children. I go there because we have friends there, you know, and on the surface, it doesn't look very good.
So
And
you're saying I don't
again,
have friends in Bronxville?
I'm sorry?
I'm questioning, are you saying that I don't have friends in Bronxville?
No, I saw you there. You were by yourself. You said that you're trying to keep a low profile.
Okay, but yet you found me. But no, seriously, I take your question serious, and here's the situation. To compete, you have to show up. And if we're going to compete for jobs, you have to be in the face of these companies. And traveling is a part of the job.
You were the only mayor that went to Dubai on this economic
And that's a
forum in the United
prestigious,
States.
and that's a prestigious invite. When you're invited to a place where you're going to be making global decisions about policy that impacts not just your local economy, but provides global solutions, it's an honor. And to know that the global president of Cisco Systems is coming to visit Mount Vernon to look at opening up an office here, has been following our work on the sewers. Microsoft has been very, 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 very vocal about their support and their work in Mount Vernon. IBM has come forward. There are a lot of things that we have to do to make sure that Mount Vernon sets itself apart. And when you look at what's going on in the region, it's no mistake that Mount Vernon has been dubbed by the New York Times the best bet for real estate because of the plans and policies that we are leading. The things that we've done, while, again, with all the obstruction and all the things that have tried to set us back, we found a way to move forward. And now with respect to the IDA, the whole purpose is to grow the economy. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, what has been done for the past quarter century? Just what's been done? The Sears and Roebuck closed, Proctor's closed, the Ford dealership closed, the Buick dealership closed. Mount Vernon has lacked an economic strategy for over 25 years. And this is something that we've been focused on, making sure that we focus on our industrial core. We've earned a grant in the amount of $800,000 from the state of New York to reprogram our Rust Belt in Canal Village. It has created what I call the Concrete Coalition, comprised of all the big industrial contractors, Defoe, Petrillo, Persico, ProTile, Prospect, the Ball and Chain, all these companies that employ thousands of people in the Pelham border, where the Fulton Bridge, which is currently open and going to open, currently up and not open, that area has come together for the first time in a very long time, and they're now talking about creating a business improvement district so we can invest more in their industrial zone.
And that's in Mount Vernon?
This is Mount Vernon, yeah, absolutely.
Well, then that's wonderful.
But you have to understand that, these businesses don't just do business in Mount Vernon. They do business on a global scale. Mm-hmm. And knowing that their mayor, your mayor, has a seat at the World Economic Forum is a big deal. No other mayor in the United States, as you pointed out, was invited to that discussion. And it was a one-day conference. However, there were other conferences that were going on at the forum that we were able to participate in. But the bottom line is, when you look at the types of developments that have gone on in Dubai, which you pointed out, thousands of jobs are at stake here. And when we're talking directly with the heads of capital, the heads of these businesses that can bring $5 billion in investment just because of a conversation, just making sure that they see our pitch to Amazon, our pitch to Walmart, our pitch to Starbucks. These are all things, these conversations do add up. And you ask a question about, well, tell me about, all this travel. Well, I pointed out I didn't go to many of the places that you laid out. It was more of a...
Newsletter. We get it every week.
But you...
I'm not
So
lying.
I'm just letting you know that some of the places that you mentioned we did not go. I sent staff members, and I'm sending another staff member tomorrow to go to another conference on sewer infrastructure to meet with the White House. So I'm unapologetic about the travel because we have to show up to compete. And if we don't show up, we're not going to succeed. And if we don't succeed, it's your property taxes are going to go up. And the point, and the point is, but I hear you, but that's nothing different than what we do. We do Skype calls. We do Skype calls. The checks and balances need to really be focused on the situation at hand. And the situation at hand, is we have two choices. We're at this fork in the road, and this is what we're talking about. We have a quarter century of no activity. I invite you to please join me for a ride to 4th Avenue after this. And I'm going to have my police team come. But you're saying no, right? You're shaking your head no.
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
I have a babysitter watching my children.
Okay, but then you know what? Then do it during the day. I invite you to. But no, it's not fine, because you see, I grew up on the south side of Mount Vernon. I had roaches crawl out of my iron. I had no food in the fridge, and I'm telling you this story because the situation is clear.
$5,000 in damage. Yeah.
And the point is, I share that with you because the point you need to receive is there are people in Mount Vernon that need a job. And if the mayor does not bring that back, then in my opinion, the mayor is not doing his job. We have to go out there and convince these companies to come to the city of Mount Vernon, to believe again. And we have $120 million. And the point is, we have to distinguish ourselves. The fact that, again, within a year of being in office, to be given a seat on the world stage, to me, is a distinct honor. And I will not apologize for that. The point remains that you have to look at the value that we got. That one study that the World Economic Forum did for Mount Vernon, those 8 weeks is well over $300,000. So the travel that I did for the 1 or 2 trips for the forum are inconsequential. So I hear you and your concern. It's easy to understand, but you have to look a little bit longer term and know that there's no pool for this kid to swim in. All right, bye, buddy. Happy birthday. Be good. So, because when you take a look at, and I'm happy to debate this, because when you look at the salary, let's start with the following. Let's tick some boxes, ladies and gentlemen, and let's put this in context. New Rochelle, their police commissioner retired after 24 years. His salary is $175,000. Police commissioner of New Rochelle, $175,000. No, the police commissioner of New Rochelle? 189? Excuse me. 189,000. Excuse me. The mayor of New Rochelle is a part-time role. It's not the same structure of government. I think he makes 120,000, and he's not the city manager. The city manager makes how much? 200? Well over 200,000. That's the city manager, not even an elected position, an appointed position. Our police commissioner in Mount Vernon, the salary line shows a 0. Before the 0, it was 120,000. So you have to ask yourself, that's the starting salary for a law school graduate, or if that, depending upon where you start. Our salaries are trapped in 1984, 1994 levels. And when you run the numbers, you'll see that the wages across the board in City Hall are historically depressed. And when you run a CPI over the past 10 years, you'll see that the salary should be in parallel with the school district, but we're not. I'm doing this, and I gave up, as everybody knows, a very good opportunity to work back in finance. You know, while I have an executive MBA in finance, I gave it up because I want Memorial Field fixed. Oh, my God. Did you stomp on it? Oh, God. All right, well, okay. He's 5. But the point is, you know, when you take inventory of the options for kids, there aren't that many. And in my opinion, we could have either just kept things the same and had the salary levels stay low, or we follow the advice of council and put in the raises, which I think are in line with other communities. I mean, you have right now firefighters making more than the mayor, which is, in my opinion, wrong. But, you know, look, I'm working with me and 2 secretaries. And you said, get a chief of staff. It's not funded. You said get a press secretary, not funded. You said get a grant writer. We only have one. We're trying to get more resources to the table, but the bottom line is when you have, a group of people that have not only a hidden agenda, but a state Supreme Court judge said political animus, sabotage, you're not going to get that far. But I do thank you all for voting for a new government. I do thank you all for voting for a new direction, but we're still dealing with the situation that is going to create this situation. In the budget we presented last year, it was 0%. It was 0% because we did not have a financial penalty to deal with. The Justice Department was clear, significant monetary penalty. I'm not proud of that, but that is the situation we face. And if we don't set aside dollars to deal with that, they're going to come in and take their pound of flesh, and we're going to lose all control. That's what happened in Yonkers when they fought the desegregation case, and they're still paying for it to this day. So my recommendation is let's be wise. Let's not repeat past mistakes. Let's input some solutions, and we can make Mount Vernon magical. Mr. Clark. He's coming around. Shane is coming around. I know you don't need the mic. But he's going to give it to you anyway.
We sat here and I observed the presentation. I don't need the mic. And
Hold it,
most
Shane.
of us here knows what the problems are in Mount Vernon. We know what it is. My thing to you, Mr. Mayor, is 217 is going out. And the recent election that we have, the voters speak. We have a change. There's going to be a new controller, and we have 2 new council people. And if you look at it, it didn't work very well for the incumbents. It's not so much a question, but can we just close out 217? And since we do the election of these people, tell us how can we get the people that we elect and who we pay to be at the table with you and us, and we have one government for the benefit of Mount Vernon. For quality of life. And that this lady don't have to go through what she's going through. I've been speaking about this for years, about our sewer system. And when you ask our council members, the present ones, why you approving skyscraper developers, giving them all this break, and they're going to bring more people into the community, which are going to be using the sewers and damage them more, and we are paying the freight. And you say in front of us at the council meeting, I'm voting for this. You tell us you're voting for it. So you're not working for us, you're working for the people. But for the 2018, how can we get the council, the controller, and yourself to meet with us and hear all what you are presenting and what it takes, because we're going to pay the freight? This nonsense of blaming this one and the other one, it has to stop.
I agree. And thank you, Mr. Clark, for that, because we do want one government. We want one Mount Vernon. And we have attempted numerous times to bring people to the table through the World Economic Forum, through Bloomberg Philanthropies, and it's not about blame. I agree. I'm describing what happened. When I say political animus and sabotage, I'm giving you the words of a state Supreme Court judge that issued 3 restraining orders against the council and controller to make sure that they respect the authorities of the mayor's office. That's the situation. I'm not proud of it, but that's what we had to do to just get government to barely function. So my hope is that and my expectation for the new incoming council members and for the new controller is that they just listen. They take a look at the consent order. They take a look at the situation at Memorial Field. It shouldn't take 10 years to fix a football field. I'm sorry. It should take, a few weeks. Bronxville remade their fields in literally overnight. And yet we can't fix our football field because of all of the drama that you're describing. So I will continue to sit at the table. I'm going to continue to invite you. This is why I do town hall forums. This is why I put Facebook Live on, and why we do these meetings. And I, commend Lana's your name, right? Lana for coming out, because she has a point, and her point is respected. I think that at the end of the day, we have to focus on solving problems. And there are results to show for the problems that we were able to tackle without real investment in the operations. The plan we put forward is a plan that invests in Mount Vernon. And as I stated before, last year we recommended a 0% increase. We were told it was unrealistic. Can't happen. The building department processed $28 million going the opposite direction. They lost $81,000 a year at a minimum. We brought in well over $2 million in fees this year alone just by processing permits with a skeletal staff. If we get the investment to use the resources that we bring in, we can do more. Now, you're right. The question is, what are we going to do with all these people that may be coming in? If we don't have a planning department, which is not funded in the current budget, there's no plan. No plan for the sewers, no plan for air quality, no plan for the parks, no plan for business community, no action. And that's unacceptable. So my hope is when you take a look at our budget, take a look at the budget that was recommended, know that the immediate consequence beginning January 1 will be, as I described, once a week garbage collection, twice a month recycling collection, because everybody will be focused on sewers. And that's going to happen January 1. Building department also will reduce their hours. And the planning department, we will assess what else we have to do to right that ship. You should know, and some of you may have already read, that $6 million in undocumented loans were given out. What are we going to do? How do we, maintain the trust of the federal government if we have issues that we cannot resolve? And that's why we need a staff to help us do much of this. And we're making progress, but we need your help to talk to the new members that are coming in and make sure that they hear us and come to the table to talk with us, so we can use your help. You got Ms. McNeil right here, and then Ms. Crump.
To say anything, and I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I've been a Mount Vernon resident for 17 years. I know many of you have been here many more years than that. The last time I spoke, I had mentioned that I bought my house new. I had it built in 2000 May. My first flood was July. In the subsequent 5 years, I've had 8 floods, including a sewer backup, and every year I get some kind of water in my beautiful finished basement. And I have been here through 4 administrations. I've had FEMA at my house, Department of Health, my insurance company, but never once a council member, never once someone from the mayor's office. In the last 3 months, this administration has made more of an effort. Granted, I'm still not in my house. We're living in a hotel that these gentlemen arranged for me. My daughter, her husband, and 2 children, aged 3 and 5. I have a dog that the hotel won't keep. I have to come home 3 times a day to walk him and sit with him. I know those are little things, but that's what makes life important, the little things. 4 administrations I have seen. You said 10 years with Memorial Field. I remember it looking like that 15 years ago. I have spoken, I've met the mayor at block associations, and the only thing that I have seen him done in my area, I got a street light put in front of my house because I got tired of sex and drugs, and I'm on the north side, okay? 17 years. I have water in my basement. I put in a $15,000 pump system. I had to add another pump at the side. Right now, we can't flush a toilet unless someone's in the basement with a wet vac. And then my son-in-law has to take out these 16 and 12-gallon wet vacs to dump in the sewer. The manhole's open in front of my house right now with 2 pumps that the guys are pumping every day. I'm on a first-name basis with the gentleman. Mr. Nigro has been a total sweetheart. I've given him a hard time. I'm not going to deny that. But, being displaced from your home is not a wonderful thing. He has reached out to us. Mayor Thomas has made an effort. This city, for the last 17 years that I have been here, have been under the controls of people who were not doing what they're supposed to do for Mount Vernon. Look at the salaries of the previous mayors and see what kind of percentages they got increases, and the council members, okay? my retirement fund, I make more in my retirement than a lot of these gentlemen do in the city. Okay? I'm just saying that for the first time in my 17 years in Mount Vernon, the mayor knows my name. Okay, Mr. Niagara, I have him on speed dial. He calls my daughter to let her know updates because I'm too emotionally strained to deal with it. My health has taken an effect. You know, my daughter just purchased a home in Mount Vernon for 8 minutes from me. 8 minutes. We can't move yet because we can't pack, because we can't be in our house. My neighbors, I have to ring their bell to use their bathroom. Do you know how embarrassing that is? And this is not important, but as soon I'm fine until I get to my house, and it seems like my stomach knows we're home, you know, and I have to go ring my neighbors' bells. This is the first time in my 17 years in this city that I have seen an effort being made. They're coming in from a mess that was left for them. Corruption. Hopefully, by December 31st, out with the old and in with the new. But I feel their heart is in the right place, and it takes time. I mean, like I said, more has been done in the last 3 months for me, and I'm just speaking for myself and a neighbor down the block, than I've seen in 17 years. So I thank you.
Thank you. And I'll say, you know, not only thank you, but on December 6th, we will commence the official start of replacing every single streetlight in the city, and we are customizing them to neighborhoods, so be on the lookout for those invitations. And we expect the new streetlights to really provide a whole new level of support for public safety, not just from illumination, but data, being able to, you know, finally identify some folks in high crime areas that are doing the bad things, and being able to use that intelligence to hold them accountable. And again, these are little things, but they're big things. And, you know, only, you know, Martin Luther King said, darkness will not drive out darkness, only light will. So we have some light coming. And Dr. King also said, hate doesn't drive out hate, only love does, which is why, you know, I receive everything from the obstruction to the rightful concerns to, you know, different ideas, because I love Mount Vernon. And I grew up here. Memorial Field helped made me. I went to all public schools. And I can assure you that I just want to see Memorial Field open. I want to see a pool come back to life. I want to see quality parks. And it can be done. It's possible. I invite you to look at Brush Park. We got a grant for that, where we had a brand new park in Brush Park for the first time since the park was built. It was a parkless park for a good number of years. So I again invite you to go take a look. We're installing a new device at Brush Park this week, and hopefully in the spring we'll have plans finalized to demolish the house. There's like this the workhouse. We're going to move it. We're going to put a splash pad in there, so you don't have to worry about paying for Wilson Woods. You can go right to Brush Park and have a splash pad, big open green space, new park, new experience, right, you know, the south side of Mount Vernon, and not have to go to, what is it, Mamaroneck on their waterfront for their park, or go to Pelham, you know, or other places to enjoy the parks. Ms. Crump? And again, paid for by a grant.
Good evening. I want to talk about your tax percentage increase.
Sure.
So going from 214 to 218, the tax percentage increase has been 7.8, 4.25, 2.13, 1.07. So it's been going down. So now you're proposing a 4.87%.
Yes.
Which is over the property tax cap.
Yes.
So currently the property tax cap is 0.68% for 2017, and will be 1.84% for the year of 2018. The Board of Estimate and Contract estimate budget is 0.6%. So how do you propose to, will you please explain first to the community the process for an override of a property tax cap? Because since your 4.87% is over the property tax cap of 1.84% for 2018, you will need a override. Will you explain that override process to the community, and how do you propose doing that?
Sure. So, as Ms. Crump pointed out, last year the property tax increase was just about 2%. And in contrast, we recommended a 0% impact last year. We had 0% in our recommendation, but taxes, you're right, went up, and that was not the budget we presented last year, because the budget that was passed last year included unfunding the entire government, but yet raising your taxes. Look at the police commissioner salary for the year 2017. Who can support that? I know I did not. Now, this year, we recommended 4.8 because of our conversations with the Department of Justice. They made it clear that we have to set aside dollars to be ready for a significant monetary penalty. And they haven't made it as clear as we calculated, but we expect a significant penalty. To give everyone the numbers, every $500,000 is 1 point on your taxes. So $2 million is just about 4 points. If you take away that $2 million that we believe we need to set aside in the event of a significant monetary penalty, then you're at 0.8, which is very similar to what the council and the comptroller presented. However, the allocations are different. They still unfunded police equipment. They unfunded fire equipment. They unfunded DPW equipment. How do you expect us to plow the snow if we have no gas in the tank? These are the subtleties that are hidden in the budget, and you have to look very carefully to find them. The numbers look like they're the same, but they're very, very subtle in creating this, what the judge found, sabotage. That's not finger pointing, that's a fact. So the process is the Board of Estimate has to legally move the budget that the council and the comptroller recommended out of the body. I have protested that, and I, as president of that body, have not recognized the agenda item, 1. 2, I did not call a meeting to order. 3, I thankfully have not been in poor health. I've been pretty okay. And based on our charter, only the mayor, who's the president of the Board of Estimate, can call a meeting. They called the meeting without me. There's a court order telling them they cannot do that. So while they want to hold a hearing on Thursday, it's illegitimate. I will not be there. I will not call it to order. And as far as I'm concerned, their budget's not even on the agenda. So my hope is we can run through 2017 and get a new government in. But if for some reason they want to pass this budget as it's designed to distract and deceive and leave nothing for DPW, leave nothing for planning, but yet spend more money out of fund balance than the budget we recommended and still not address the Department of Justice, I have no other option but to alert the Justice Department, which we've drafted communications to them, explaining that the meeting we had in April, where they asked Comptroller Walker, they asked Councilman Wallace, they asked Councilwoman Copeland, they asked Council President Apuzzo, will money be a problem to start addressing the issues? They said no, all of them. You just heard the consultant who was at that meeting say back at that meeting he hasn't been paid, and he still hasn't been paid since that meeting. Ms. Crump, I don't know what to tell you, but there are people that sit on the other side of the building that just don't want to see us move forward on fixing basic problems. And the math is the math. $2 million we have to set aside for the Justice Department just in case. And I'm doing my best to convince them through earning grants, recognition at the world stage, recognition by the Regional Planning Association, RPA. That's the first time Mount Vernon's been mentioned in their plan. Go figure. The first time. So the ideas that we're bringing to the table are catching fire in the right places, the places where decisions are made on how federal dollars, state dollars are allocated. And I can only be in one place. Commissioner Nigro, if you've seen the video of him operating equipment at Memorial Field, it's not because he just loves doing it. It's because the funds, the millions that we have available from the county, but also the millions that we have set aside in the capital code, we can't touch it because one of the partners, they don't want to show up and partner with us to even fix a field that needs to be fixed. Again, I go back to Dolph Rotfeld. He hasn't been paid. This is a crisis. So my hope is the council and comptroller just stop. Come talk to us. The letter that I sent the comptroller in July was well in advance of the primary, well in advance. We could have easily, done a lot of different things together throughout the summer to focus on earning an opportunity to get $64 million, which we project as being one of the total costs of fixing the sewers. Fixing the sewers over the next 10 years is what we expect. So I just say, to answer your question, I don't see how their budget's going to pass because it's technically not on the table.
With all due respect, Mayor, I appreciate everything that you have shared. However, you have not answered my question. The question is, will you please explain to the community the process for overriding the property tax cap?
The process.
And if I may finish, please, and add on a little bit more since you shared some more information which prompts some more questions. One, I want to address the statement that you made in regards to the pool. The Mount Vernon City School District had a ribbon cutting this morning, and so the pool is therefore open. And one of the stipulations that our Assemblyman, Gary Pretlow, made was that for the $1 million grant is that the school district offer free swimming lessons for Mount Vernon residents for at least a year. After that, it may go up. That is a money-generating revenue, the pool. However, Mount Vernon City, we do have a pool that's accessible for the residents. Now, you mentioned the commissioner, and please don't forget to answer the question in regards to the process for overriding the property tax cap. But you mentioned about the comptroller council unfunding the police commissioner. You know me as well. I don't brown nose, sugarcoat, appease, fluff, and beat around the bush. It's not about me liking or disliking somebody. It's about the facts and staying focused. So with that said, in regards to the police commissioner, will you also explain the process at which the city goes about hiring a police commissioner, because you keep saying that they've unfunded. However, I am aware via low HUD and other means of a meeting that took place of the city council. I believe you were there, some clergy, community leaders, where that was a topic of discussion. And a salary was agreed upon of about $175,000 as a starting. More could be added to that if needed. And my understanding, and if you will also share with the community, and if somebody would keep up with these questions to ensure that we get some answers, in reference to your public safety committee that is going through a hiring, interviewing process for a commissioner, but yet my understanding is that they need to make a recommendation to you, you need to make a recommendation to the council, and then a commissioner is hired, providing they meet whatever vetting process, and then monies are added. But at least with that meeting that was held with you and other people, there was a salary starting point of $175. Now, you mentioned about, I saw your meeting, WVOX, when you mentioned about an illegitimate budget. So will you, and I wondered, and I asked the question, I'm glad you're answering it now, because I asked the question on your Facebook page about what did you mean by illegitimate budget. So I am aware that there was a BOE, Board of Estimate and Contract meeting on November 17th, and the comptroller and council wanted to bring forth their proposed revised budget. And you hit the gavel and ended the meeting. And then you said that they could bring it back the following week, which was the 21st. And I believe that there was a meeting held, a BOE meeting on the 21st, and so therefore it was voted upon, which would make it not an illegitimate budget. But at any event, I don't want to go through here or there with them who's doing what. I just want those questions answered, and if you could possibly, I'll repeat the questions. The question
I got all three.
Is,
There
I
are
don't
three
know,
questions.
somebody in
I
the
got it.
audience that,
No,
feel
I
like
got
they need
all
to
three, Ms.
repeat it.
Crump, and I'm going to answer them.
Okay,
Number
thank
one is
you.
property tax override. The council votes on it. That's it. The council votes to override the property tax cap. That's how you override it. The second question about And I'm going to go to the illegitimate one because that's the one you went to. And the police commissioner, we'll go to that one next. As stated, and you just described it, I, as president of the body of the Board of Estimate, ended the meeting and I invoked Robert's Rules of Order, pointing out two things. One, that there was nothing on the agenda to signal that we're even going to have the budget discussion. We've been asking the council and comptroller since September 19th, when we submitted the budget, to sit down and talk to us about their ideas, their goals. We went over and above showing where we're going to get revenue. We proved that we can bring in revenue to pay for the operations. We proved it. The numbers are there. However, they tried to vote on an item that was not on the agenda. And when you read the charter and look carefully, the presiding officer, which is the mayor of the Board of Estimate, has the right to recognize whether or not a member can even speak. Those rules were invoked. I invite you to please check the charter. The law department is here. Brian Johnson's right in front of you. He can, talk with you with a longer debrief about it. So the only way to call a Board of Estimate meeting and contract to order is by the presiding officer gaveling in. I never gavelled that meeting in that they held. The meeting that they held was not on the date and time that we agreed upon. Just wasn't. And it was the following day, the 23rd. We agreed to the following day, and they didn't even show up the following day. I don't know what to say. The court order is clear, though. They cannot do what they did. And I'm trying to convince them to come back, talk to us, like Mr. Clark recommended, bring the new incoming council members, let's bring in the new comptroller, and let's talk about this. I mean, there are real problems here. And as I pointed out, the 4% is really the $2 million to set aside just in case justice comes. And last year, they were not coming. And we were at 0.6% last year, 0%. I invited you to subtract the 4%, the $2 million that I'm talking about, and you'll get down to 0.8, which is essentially the same as them. But again, ladies and gentlemen, you look at the allocations very closely, and that's why I'm telling you, we're going to result with once a week garbage collection, twice a month recycling, as well as a building department that's going to be open only a few days a week, and you're going to have no planning taking place. There's only but so much Steve can do by himself. And the vendors that you see, Dolph Rotfeld being one of them, he's due close to $20,000. And he was promised to get paid in front of the Justice Department, and he still hasn't been paid. With respect to the police commissioner, it's absurd. No, the process is very simple. The process is the mayor appoints. That's it. That's the process. I did not have to do a public safety review commission meeting. I did not have to invite the clergy to the table. I did not have to bring business leaders forward. I did not have to do all that. But I believe in a process of engagement. I believe in bringing people in and listening to all different views. And I brought the clergy forward to try and help break the gridlock. But guess what happened since February? They never put the money in the budget. Who's going to work for $0? How can I appoint somebody and they not get paid? Absolutely not. They took it away in the first place. It's, Ms. Crump, with all due respect, it is absurd. They need to put the money in the budget, period. Just put it in. Did they do this to Ernie Davis? Did they do it to Clinton Young? But it's a fact. But what about me? I got crime to go down 22%. What about that? Without a commissioner, can you imagine what I can do with one? I'm passionate because I'm passionate because what they're saying is that your life doesn't matter. What they're saying is Shamoya's life doesn't matter. What they're saying is, no. Do you believe that, Ms. Crump? They haven't paid somebody after they told the Justice Department they were going to pay. They haven't paid the bills. They just don't want to see success. This is what we're doing.
have not, because you have not presented that, sir.
What you're describing, so I hear you, look,
To appoint somebody to a position, and there's no money in the budget.
Shane,
You know that they cannot approve a job at the Board of Health without money in the budget. It's zero. It does not matter. It's an appointed job, and the mayor he cannot hire somebody without the money not in the budget. That's understood.
We all know that the money is there, and public safety is at the top issue. We don't know where. Let's hold them accountable. And you have your public safety people.
So the good news is the Public Safety Review Commission made a recommendation today. And we're going to look at that. We literally received it, which is part of the reason why we showed up a few minutes behind. We received it around, 6 o'clock, Melissa? 5 something? Okay. So it was just delivered today. But again, let's look at the same situation. And then Shane, if you could, this will be the last question before we wrap up. Or 2 questions. I'm sorry. All right, last 2 questions. The point is, New Rochelle, they didn't take the money out of the budget. They didn't make it zero. They said to the world, here's 189 grand, please come work for us. And they launched a national search. We did the opposite. We took the money out and said, across the country, come work for us, but we can't tell you how much we're going to pay you. It's a secret. And we had great discussions with people from Dallas, from people from Oakland, California, from people from as far as Arizona, and some people as close as here in Mount Vernon. But the fundamental question was, how much am I going to get paid? And we can't say I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. But that's what happened. So just know that. I hear you. It is frustrating. But look, we need to make a decision. And we're ready to make one, but they need to put the money on the table so somebody can work. You have a question here?
I just wanted to say that I've been here in Mount Vernon. I'm not going to even talk about the years. But I've been to the city council meetings. I have talked with some of the city council members and so forth. And my biggest problem, when you talk about, we have problems. I mean, we got some serious problems. Yeah. And when you're talking about people legally making us have to pay for stuff that we should be addressing, like our sewage and all of these other issues, it's just over and over again. I am so tired of going to meetings and seeing us sit and argue. I mean, is something wrong with our charter? I mean, seriously, is something wrong with our city charter? You have to think about that. Maybe we need a referendum on our charter. Because what's happening is I'm constantly being told, and I've been told this over and over again, oh, the charter says this. How old is this charter? Maybe it needs to be revised because, first of all, we need our elected officials
to work.
Working together to help us as a community. I consider Mount Vernon to be a black pearl in the rough. And we should not be at this state in time, this time. We need to be working together. And we keep electing people that gets on this board or boards that don't want to work together. I don't understand it. You sit on that council.
Yes, I did.
And you've seen what's been going on over and over again. There needs to be some changes, some fundamental changes.
Thank you. And I agree with that notion. Which is why we found some funds to finish the comprehensive plan, and part of that comprehensive plan will be a review of our charter, and hopefully we can get some recommendations about charter revision. I think it's about time, and I can't agree more. I mean, fixing a football field is an argument. I just want to emphasize that. I just want to fix the football field. and I want to bring back youth sports in Mount Vernon so our kids have a shot, be it soccer, track, be it field, be it football, whatever it is. I'm with you. We're all tired of the drama, and I'm tired of having to, but nonetheless, I'm not going to turn my back on Mount Vernon, and I hope that you all stay engaged and know that the plans we put forward are plans that we believe pays for themselves, and we invite you to look at the details very closely. Ma'am.
Hi, good evening. My name is Donna Benjamin. I recently moved to Mount Vernon 1 year, January, and this is my second town hall meeting, and I am very impressed with the mayor. He's doing a wonderful job. The council let me tell you a story. My mom said, when I told her I'm going to buy a house, she said, where? I said, Mount Vernon. She said, that's a dump. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I was like, I love the house. She's like, no, don't go there. It's a dump. And I'm telling you, I fell in love with Mount Vernon. Yes. I fell in love with Mount Vernon, and I like this place. It can be the best, as I said, a diamond in the rough or a pearl. It can be. The reason is the administration, prior administration, prior. They're selfish and self-centered, and they were all for themselves. Okay? Now this new administration coming in, whenever you're having a council meeting, they all should be on that, right there. They should be all there. Send invites to them, because we elected them for one reason and one reason only, to serve us.
And Ms. Benjamin, you're right. And you should know that we did ask some of the news outlets to consider hosting a dialogue, specifically this one. And we invited, them to ask the council to sit there and the comptroller, and I'll gladly do a debate with them. But we can't debate them if they don't show up. And so I'll gladly participate in the debate next week, tomorrow.
We're not in.
No. But the point I'm making is the language they seem to speak is conflict, right? That's the language they speak. I'm speaking, let's resolve our differences and move forward. And I'm yet to see a plan that addresses the sewers, that addresses the federal government's concerns with HUD. Those are two major areas. And I didn't even recommend, all the solutions with HUD, because we're still trying to negotiate that. But the point remains, if we're dealing with a group of people that we all agree that don't want to work together, the only thing I can do is inform you and inform you of the consequence of the decision that they're making without us, about us. And I'm counting on you to just, share this information with your friends, share it with your neighbors, and just know that we're going to continue to do our best to find a resolution. And we're ready to reconcile. I mean, I've offered to sit down with each of the council members, jointly, separately. My commissioners have offered to sit down and go over things. But again, when you look at the budget they recommended nothing. And that's not going to work, especially with the March 2018 deadline. You can bring that up, Corey, again, that 2018 deadline.
I don't think they should be signing off on anything else. They're out. They shouldn't be signing off on nothing else. It's over. They shouldn't be signing off on anything else.
Well, wait a minute, hold on. We have, and just, in closing, I can't thank you all enough. I do have to eventually get to my son to sing happy birthday. Hopefully he didn't go to sleep. But I do want you to know that this was important enough for me to miss my son's birthday. And for me, he's 5 today, and I do believe that this merits us to really just look at the results, look at the numbers, look at the crime statistics, look at the difference. We can show you metrics. Look at the amount of potholes that we were able to fill with very little equipment. Look at the amount of roads we've been able to repave. Look at the sidewalks that we were able to address. It's all about just trying to get what we have to work better for you. And all we're asking is just for a little bit more support. Mr. Clark, you're going to close this out.
I'm volunteering to be on the review committee for the charter.
Done.
I'm volunteering
Done. Any more takers? 3. All right, one more question? Right here. One more question, Shane.
Yes. Mr. Mr. Mayor, my name is Angela Lewis.
Hello, Ms.
I live in
Lewis.
Fleetwood, and you are the best. And doesn't matter where you go, whether Hawaii or Dubai or whatever, you are the best yet.
Thank you. 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 Well, everybody, thank you for coming out, and I thank you, and you know, my hope is to continue to do good work for you, and I hope you take some of the handouts and share this information and know that we're not going to stop trying to work for you to make Mount Vernon better, and you know, win our future. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.